but Steph Curry, in his own way, got a little bit exposed. I thought last night his decision-making as a point guard was atrocious.
Fate of the universe on the line, or the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth. You better hit it. I want Iguodala.
Well, we're on him because he deserves it. You have to figure out a way to either score the basketball or get it to the people with the hot hands. And Steph did not have he had the coldest hand I've ever seen.
Steph Curry is undoubtedly one of the greatest point guards of all time, but this season saw the Warriors end on a disappointing note, as in a decisive Game 4 where the Warriors could have won, Curry missed 2 shots in the last 30 seconds that could have given the Warriors a lead, which could have potentially swung the series. But shortly after going down 3-1, a new narrative started to surface surrounding Curry, mostly a stat posted from SportsCenter saying that Steph is 0-12 in his playoff career on potential go-ahead shots in the final 45 seconds of the fourth quarter or overtime. And after being eliminated, more Curry slander followed, fueling the narrative that Steph Curry is unclutch. But what is clutchness? How bad is Steph Curry in tight situations? And if it isn't Steph, who is the most clutch point guard of all time? So let's start at the beginning and try to answer a question that fans of all sports have debated for years. Is it buzzer beaters? Is it game-winning shots? How does the regular season compare to the playoffs? What about in legacy-defining games? How does performing in the finals compare to performing in the rest of the playoffs, and so on and so on. There is no one metric to define what it means to be clutch, but I've laid out a series of stats that could answer this very question: is Steph Curry a clutch player? I've taken a look at Steph Curry from every single angle statistically, including his clutch metrics in both the regular season and the playoffs, which is defined as a 5-point game within 5 minutes, game-winning buzzer beaters, go-ahead shots in both the regular season and playoffs, tying shots in the regular season and playoffs, as well as a comparison in how good is Steph Curry in the playoffs versus the regular season. But of course, these stats mean nothing in a vacuum. So for all of these, I have compared Steph to some of the greatest point guards as far back as StatHead stats go, including Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, Kyle Lowry, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, Steve Nash, Derrick Rose, Chauncey Billups, Jason Kidd, Tony Parker, Allen Iverson, and just for Max Kellerman, Andre Iguodala. So how clutch is Steph compared to some of the greatest guards of the century? Let's take a look at the most basic clutch stat there is. A 5-point game with 5 minutes left in the regular season. Going up is the total amount of clutch field goals a player has hit in their career, and the farther to the right indicates how efficient a player is in those shots. Starting off with the worst players in this category include Jason Kidd, Allen Iverson, and Derrick Rose. Iverson was a big surprise for me here, but over the course of his career, he is an effective field goal percentage. Remember, effective field goal percentages measure how threes are worth more than twos, but Iverson has an EFG of just 41%, tied with Rose for the worst of everyone here. Jason Kidd wasn't too much better, but he didn't attempt as many clutch shots. And speaking of someone who has taken way too many, let's look at Russell Westbrook, who leads everyone with 601 clutch field goals, but is tied with Jason Kidd as the second least efficient player. Continuing up, we see Andre Iguodala sitting in the middle efficiency-wise at 47%. Right above him, it includes Chauncey Billups, Damian Lillard, Tony Parker, and Kyrie Irving. But surprising to me, and something that we'll see again, is that Steve Nash is the most efficient guard here, shooting 53% in the clutch during the regular season. Curry is only a few percentage points less efficient, but CP3 may just be the best guard here with a 48% effective field goal percentage on 453 made attempts in the regular season. But now let's look at go-ahead shots in the regular season. We will keep it to the same as the ESPN stat, looking at just go-ahead shots in the last 45 seconds. Again, Jason Kidd is an outlier, but Rose and Iverson proved to me much better. Westbrook still takes way too many shots, and to no one's real surprise, Iguodala is not the best on this list. Nash remains efficient, but shows a drop in volume. Paul leads everyone by hitting the most go-ahead shots, but sitting at the 3 most effective point guards in hitting go-ahead shots includes Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, and Damian Lillard, where Lillard has quite the lead on the other two, but again, statistically, Curry is still showing up as some of the best in the league. So Steph Curry clutch? In the regular season, I would say so. It may have taken him an incredibly long time to hit a game-winning buzzer beater, but his one game winner is the same amount as Allen Iverson, Chris Paul, and Kyrie Irving. Although Andre Iguodala has 5 according to Basketball Reference, so... But yes, Steph Curry is clutch in the regular season, and I know you're probably saying, what about the playoffs? So let's look at these stats in the playoffs now. Once again, looking at the same basic clutch stat, Russell Westbrook nearly breaks the chart by shooting only 30%. Kidd, Rose, Billups, and Irving all have a lower volume but are much more efficient. Chris Paul, Allen Iverson, and Damian Lillard are all at an incredibly respectable range, yet still less efficient than Andre Iguodala. But the biggest shocker to me is Steve Nash and Kyle Lowry have an effective field goal percentage in clutch playoff scenarios of 57%. Although they aren't the two best here, as that would go to Tony Parker, who leads all guards in volume while remaining respectably efficient, and Steph Curry. Curry hitting 71 clutch field goals at a 49% effective field goal percentage. So Curry has been just as efficient as others in the playoffs on a much larger volume. But let's not get too high on Steph now. Let's go back to that ESPN stat. Go ahead shots in the playoffs with 45 seconds left. This graph is obviously more bare bones, with Curry, Lowry, and Westbrook never hitting a game-winning shot in that time. Kyrie hit one three-pointer, putting him at 75%. Kidd, Parker, Iverson, Nash, and Iguodala hitting 2, and Lillard, Paul, Billups, and Rose with 3. Curry, as noted, is 0 of 12 in this scenario. Lowry is 0 of 3, but Westbrook manages to be the worst, sitting at 0 of 13. But let's change this a little bit now and include game tying shots. After all, hitting a tying shot in the clutch can be just as impactful and just as clutch as a game-winning shot. Note, the percentages and volume change here, and Curry still falls into the bottom of all players. Westbrook and Kidd just prove why they shouldn't touch the ball in this scenario, and what's interesting to me is that Curry and Parker, two of the best performers in basic clutch stats, are some of the worst in the last 45 seconds. Steve Nash sits in the center at 43% in the clutch, with Rose matching him in volume. Kyrie and Iguodala have an incredibly efficient, effective field goal, but have only 2 made shots each. This just goes to show how hard and how rare it is to have go-ahead or tying shots in the playoffs. Unless you're Damian Lillard, then you're all the way up here, and you're in a completely different league. So the 5 metrics that we've looked at so far, Curry is on top, and what I would say is clutch in 3 of the 5, which is already much better than what the narrative surrounding him gives him credit for. But these are all specific statistics. When you're clutch but lose the game, how much does that really mean? Of all the players I looked at, Steph Curry is by far one of the most successful in the playoffs when it comes to efficiently winning games. Technically, Kyrie wins 68% of the time and Curry wins 67%, but Curry also has twice as many victories as him. The only players who have more wins than Curry are Iguodala at 107 and Tony Parker at 137, with Curry winning 7% more than them. But those are just a large number of games. What about games that really matter? To try and compare everyone, I looked at their record in elimination games. Games where if you lose, you are out of the playoffs. These can be some of the most important games in a player's career, as the way they respond in a Game 7 or down 3-2 in Game 6 can change a legacy. In elimination games, the guard with the highest win percentage is Steph, winning 64% of the time, 9 wins and 5 losses. The worst is Derrick Rose at 14%, I couldn't even graph him. What surprised me the most was seeing Steve Nash win 13 games at 54% and Billups winning 12 games at 55%. For someone who has never made the finals, Nash has shown plenty of success in both the clutch and in the playoffs. But you may say a team can win an elimination game and carry someone. I do agree with that, so I took a look at everyone's scoring and efficiency in elimination games and compared that to their scoring in their playoff averages. So who are the players who show a biggest increase in their games when their backs are to the wall? Irving, Lowry, and Iguodala all see a 3-point increase in their games, as well as a 2% overall increase in their field goal percentage. Jason Kidd, for as unclutch as he is shown to be, shoots 4% better from the field, and Westbrook shows the biggest decrease at 4%. But most other players actually stay in the middle, unless you're Derrick Rose and Steph Curry. Rose is the most disappointing player, seeing a near 3-point decrease while being less efficient in elimination games, and Curry is also less efficient, albeit both just by 1%, but Curry jumps by scoring nearly 2.5 more points per game in elimination games. In this specific category, Steph Curry is pretty average compared to everyone else, but I want to note that this stat is measuring an increase or a decrease in their average game, not their average elimination game playoff performance, because in total scoring, Allen Iverson and Steph Curry both average 29 points per game, meaning Curry more than doubles the scoring of Jason Kidd and Andre Iguodala in elimination games. Curry again is at least average or above average when compared to other point guards. So is Steph Curry clutch? Well, before we answer that, let's take this another step further. I wanted a little more context surrounding that ESPN stat of go-ahead go-ahead shots in the last 45 seconds. But this time, I wanted to see how Curry compares to the rest of the Warriors organization. So let's take a look at some of the best Warriors in NBA history when it comes to go-ahead or tying shots at any time in the last 45 seconds. Surprisingly, there aren't too many. Here's Monta Ellis, Baron Davis, Steven Jackson, Latrell Sprewell, and all the way out here with a 50% effective field goal percentage sits Jordan Poole, on only 3 makes. But what about the Warriors' core 4, the ones who terrorized the lead and the ones who led them to so many finals appearances? Where's Draymond? Oh. Okay, well, Draymond was never really a scorer or a shot creator. How about Klay Thompson, one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time? 12 makes on 44% effective field goal percentage. That's pretty good. That's really good actually. But you want to know who's even better? It's Steph Curry, making 19 shots at 43%. Lastly, where is Kevin Durant? Kevin Durant is one of the greatest bucket getters of all time, and with his skill set, he is built for the type of one-on-one situation that thrives in the last minute of a game. He is right here. Not even on the graph. During his time in the Bay, Kevin Durant hit just one go-ahead or tying shot with less than 45 seconds left. He is 1 of 14 with an effective field goal percent of just 7%. 7% for Kevin Durant. Steph Curry is by far the most clutch player in the Warriors organization, at least since 1997. What makes things more impressive for Curry is that he has done things by himself more than most other players as well. Monta Ellis was assisted on 57% of his makes, Klay Thompson 83%, Poole and Iguodala on their 5 makes were assisted 100% of the time. Meanwhile, Curry was only fed the ball 21% of the time, the second lowest to Baron Davis at just 17%. So not only is Curry one of the best clutch shooters for Golden State, he also had to make some of the most difficult shots for the Warriors. And the last thing that I wanted to look at was Curry's individual play in the playoffs versus the regular season. So for every year that Curry's been to the playoffs, I looked at his stats that year and compared it to the regular season to gain a sense to see, is Curry rising up in the playoffs, maintaining his level of the regular season, or is he falling up short? Here is what that looks like, and right away I noticed a few things. First, Steph's efficiency falls quite a bit in the playoffs. His effective field goal percentage is nearly 4 points worse, and his 3-point percentage drops off by about 3 points in the playoffs. This isn't too surprising as players typically see a small efficiency drop in the playoffs, but to me, Curry falls right in the middle and for the majority of his career maintains averages in the playoffs. He only saw a lower scoring total 3 times, which we'll talk about in a second, but he also saw scoring increases in his last 3 postseasons. He doesn't show a drastic increase in fouls or turnovers in the playoffs. His assists generally remain up to par, and as I've mentioned, it's normal to be less efficient. Surprisingly, we see a rebounding increase from him ever since their first championship. I figured this is due to Draymond Green, who sees a minutes increase in the playoffs, especially at the center position. At 6'7", he isn't the most prolific rebounder, opening up for Curry to get an extra board or 2 per game. For a lot of the flack that Curry receives about playoff performances, he has been strong in nearly every single series he's been in, but we need to talk about it. Curry's worst series, the 2016 NBA Finals. In the Warriors' collapse to Cleveland, Curry averaged 22, 5, and 4, having more turnovers than assists for the entire series. We all know the story. The Warriors took a 3-1 lead after having the greatest season of all time. Even when they were up, Curry wasn't performing that great. And in Game 7, at home, Curry put up only 17 points and shot 4 of 14 from 3. He only had 1 make in the entire 4th quarter. He had a crucial, avoidable turnover in the final minutes and was locked up in the final minute by Kevin Love. This single series, maybe even just this single Game 7, has defined the narrative for Steph Curry's career as a clutch player. This series is the reason why we forget that he actually led a 3-1 comeback against the Thunder, saving the Warriors with a 28-6-6 series, including a 36-point Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals. Curry lost all of his clutch credibility. That, and being combined with Kevin Durant, made it harder for those across the league to root for him. In my opinion, it gave him less chance chances to actually make up for the 2016 finals, and many fans have gone on to say that it wasn't until 2022 where they actually avenged their 2016 finals loss. But if we look beyond this one failure of a series, Curry has had a solid playoff career, including 7 different times where he averaged over 30 a game. So the question that we've been talking about is Steph Curry a clutch point guard? Despite the stain that is on his legacy, I would call Curry one of the better clutch point guards of the last 25 years. Looking at either individual or team metrics, he consistently ranks towards the top with his performances. Is he the most clutch of everyone here? I'm pretty confident in saying that he isn't, but I am having trouble on saying who would be the most clutch. Irving actually had a lot of potential statistically, as well as hitting one of the best shots in NBA history, but it's on a pretty low volume. Chris Paul ranks high for his career, but has also lost numerous leads, including a 3-1 lead in LA, a 2-0 lead in the finals, and never actually won the championship. Steve Nash and Damian Lillard haven't won a ring, but both have shown to be extremely clutch over their careers, and out of the sample size, I would say that Damian Lillard is the most clutch point guard here. When it comes to the course of NBA history, Curry is not going to be known for his clutchness, not like how guys like Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron are known. But for point guards, he can compare with anyone and is better than most. But like many other greats, Curry has some massive blemishes on his resume, stuff that might be even unfairly affecting him. But after all this, Max Kellerman may just have a point. If the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth, if the Monstars took control of the defensive talent of Kevin Love in the last minute of the 2016 finals, maybe you want Iguodala. But if you need to win a big time game, if you want a guy to get you into the playoffs, if you want to go to the finals, I'm trusting in number 30.